want to talk about the PA catheter, also known as the Swan-Ganz catheter for advanced hemodynamic monitoring. Some of the overview key topics that we're going to discuss in this video is some of the anatomy of the actual device itself, where it came from, the inspirations behind its design, as well as some of the important things we should know about its benefit as an isolated tool and when it's used in conjunction with other advanced and non-invasive hemodynamic monitoring. What is really cool about this specific device is it allows us to see each pressure individually within each chamber, so we can really understand what is happening within the heart and also target our treatment and interventions. Are we getting better and improving, thusly helping us target going in the right direction? So before we get into the specific components of the PA Swan-Ganz catheter, it's important to know what kind of patients you're likely to run across that are going to have this intervention in place. And that is your cardiac patients, pulmonary hypertension, left ventricular heart failure, even in your cardiac surgery patient populations. Fascinating is how the PA catheter even came to be, the idea behind it, because it's rather fascinating. Dr. Swans and his co-founder were observing sailboats off the beaches of Santa Monica and noticed something rather peculiar: how the wind influenced the sail which propelled the boat across the water. This created the idea where the balloon acts as a sail to sail the distal end through the chambers of the heart with minimal irritation to the endocardium, allowing it to seat in the pulmonary artery, which then can be inflated for minimal amounts of time to obtain a pulmonary artery wedge pressure. Now, is this a net positive, negative, or a neutral benefit to critically ill patients? And what seems to be in the literature is the jury's still out, that isolated and alone, it seems to rather be a net neutral per the ESCAPE trial. Now, when you're looking at it in conjunction with a multi-model approach of advanced hemodynamics and non-invasive hemodynamics like blood pressure, invasive blood pressure monitoring, urinary output, etc., you see an actual decrease in 30-day mortality when you incorporate a more comprehensive approach. So that is your part 2 of the PA catheter. The man, the myth, the legend in front of our very eyes, the Swan-Ganz PA catheter. So while intimidating at first glance, as we get through our critical care journey, we will find that this device is a really helpful and useful tool that we can form a healthy respect for, as well as a confidence in being able to manage our patients that have these particular devices in place. So looking at our anatomy here of our device, we go to the distal end and we notice, well, hey, check that out, a balloon inflates. And that is by applying 1.5 mLs of air. And what's really interesting about the syringe, contrary to other syringes, is when you pull back on this 3 cc syringe, it's not, that's it. It's capped out at 1.5 mLs. So that's just something to take into account. Also, when this bad boy gets inflated, it's going to be threaded through the chambers of the heart, through the right atrium, the right ventricle, ultimately in the pulmonary artery. And this guy is going to seat into the pulmonary artery. But the point of the balloon is to act as the famous doctor theorized, like a sail on a sailboat being propelled by the wind. This is being propelled by the blood to get through the chambers of the heart without irritating the endocardium as little as possible. And then we kind of go over to our thermistor, or kind of like our thermometer rather, that is what's going to plug in, and it's going to measure our temperature of the blood. And you go, well, why the heck would we need to do that? So I want you to do an experiment. This is going to kind of help you maybe visualize why we need to measure the temperature of the blood or how it can benefit. So if you take your hand in front of your face and you blow as fast as you can, you will notice that it's one temperature, contrary to going and blowing slowly. One is hotter, one is cooler. So there could be something to be said about how fast something is moving. It can be dependent with the temperature associated with it. So if the blood is moving faster, it could be at a different temperature than if the blood was moving slower or more sluggish, which we can deduce based on the temperature, maybe how well that blood is moving. And obviously that can dictate if we're having good perfusion or not. So as we look at our lumens, we will see that we have a blue lumen, which is the CVP, or the proximal lumen, looking at that right atrial pressure. And then we have the yellow lumen, or the distal lumen, looking at that pulmonary artery. pressure. And as we mentioned before, how we can get that wedge pressure is we're going to inflate that balloon, but for no longer than 15 seconds, because we don't want to create a mechanical occlusion for too long and disrupt flow. But we can obtain our CVP, pulmonary artery pressure, and we can get our pulmonary artery wedge pressure off of these lines. And of course, as mentioned before in previous lectures, is that the PA catheter can give us a number of values such as cardiac index or CVP or pulmonary artery pressure, wedge, which is a lot of different metrics to help kind of see what's going on within the heart. And then we're able to deduce as a result what is going on, the types of shock, and even maybe how is treatment responding for this particular patient.